Yeah, the right place. I'm going to start now. Okay?
This is what people are watching already.
Currently, the unexpected. Wow. Why would I consider this the unexpected? Because I don't think in the entire history of my being in Beis Rivka, which is quite a number of years, I ever had the opportunity of standing on the bima and facing parents, following social distancing, and at the same time speaking to the parents on the live stream. So in a sense, we're connecting in so many different ways. And this whole concept of social distancing doesn't apply to us, because even though we may be socially distanced geographically, we're definitely close personally. And why are we close personally? Because we all share one common denominator. Whether your daughter is in the 9th grade, or the 10th, or the 11th, or the 12th, she's part of our family. She's part of the Beis Rivka family. And that gives us the reason why we're here tonight. I know you're all familiar with the Hayom Yom, where it says, the Rebbe Rashab said that a parent should think a half hour a day about his child's chinuch. In a way, it sounds overwhelming. In a family of Bruchas Yaladim, I wouldn't be doing anything except sitting and thinking about my child's chinuch. So there's a question, what does it really mean? Does it mean I'm supposed to sit there and contemplate, okay, Mushki's chinuch, and Bentas chinuch, and Yagin's chinuch, and Sarah's chinuch? And what else would I do during that day? And so the answer, what I heard from Rabbi Roth from Yerushalayim, a very well-known mechanech. He was the head of many educational institutions in Eretz Yisrael from the Chabad system for many, many years. And his answer is so real and so brilliant and so true. He says it means that everything, a half hour a day means that every half hour of the day, whatever you do, you think, how does this impact my child's chinuch? Whatever you're doing, you're in business, the way I'm dealing with my business right now at this moment, how will it impact my child's chinuch? You're at home reading a magazine, you're taking a walk, and this is such a true concept. If our entire being is permeated by this feeling, everything I do affects my child's chinuch. So I want to tell you something, dear parents. The mere fact that you're here tonight illustrates and is evident of the fact that you care so much about your child that even though there was a live stream and you could have sat comfortably at home on your couch with a cup of coffee, not on these shul benches, you came. And you know why you came? Because you cared enough to take that extra effort to come. Which reminds me of the story of an old chassid who was going to Lubavitch. And the train stops in Rudnia. I was there a few years ago. I saw it myself. The town of Lubavitch, there's a train station in Rudnia. But he always would get off on the stop before Rudnia. From Rudnia, it's a very short trip. I don't know how long by horse and carriage, but by our car that we went, it took maybe 12 minutes. And the other chassidim asked him, why do you get off on the station before Rudnia? Rudnia is so close. And his answer was, I want to put an effort. I don't want it to be so easy to come to see the Rebbe. I want to work at it. And the fact that you worked at it, you took your car or you walked here, as I said before, is the best chinuch lesson you could give your children. It's an indication of how much you care. So why are we here tonight? We're here tonight because this is called an orientation and an open school night. So let's discuss these two words for a moment. Orientation. What is it to orient oneself? What does orientation mean? If you look in the dictionary, it says to define the point you are at to the point you're going to. Pretty good. An orientation is supposed to tell us, where are we at right now? And where am I going to? How do I get from point A to point B? How do I orient myself? Open night means transparency. What happens in school? What is the day like? And I'm speaking to a very mixed group of parents. For some of you, this must be your 7th daughter in Beis Rivka. For others, it's your first. And in truth, as Mara Goldschmidt always says, every time you're a new parent, because every child is being raised under different circumstances, different parent age, different sibling relationship, and definitely, this is the first time ever we're sending our children to school in this current situation and the challenges we face in the COVID-19 era. So therefore, this is like new. It's new for you, it's new for me. It's new for me that after half a year of Zooming, we're back here, and our dearest students are not even all together. We are so accustomed in Beis Rivka that every single morning, 600 girls walk in, of 582 last year, and there's such an excitement and an energy. And it's such a great feeling to be in their presence. But now, we're all divided. We have one grade here, one grade in the lunchroom, one grade in the lunchroom, and one grade in their classrooms for davening. And so, there's so many changes. So let's orient ourselves. First of all, where are we coming from? We're coming from a very difficult and challenging period. We're coming from a time when all of you parents were not merely mothers and fathers, but you were teachers, you were social workers, you were administrators, you were budget keepers, you were the socialization responsibility of your children. You wore all those hats, and you wore them so, so well. We're coming from a time where I'm so proud of our girls. They just are so, so great. And I'm using that word advisedly. Because can you imagine all the transitions they had to make? March 10th, I'll never forget it, 11:05, I get a phone call from the Rav's office. You should close school. Excuse me, is this a Purim joke? It's the week before Purim. Is it supposed to be funny, like a comedy? No, we had a meeting now, and schools have to be closed. I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. I really was a little confused. And when I went up to tell the girls, I remember in one class the girls laughed, "Yay, school's out." I remember my very emotional, extreme reaction. I said, "Girls, how can you laugh? It's not a happy thing. For 2 weeks now, whatever, it's the reason why it's happening. People are sick." And they said, "Oh, really?" It was like such a weird notion. People are sick and we're closing school. And we thought we were going to be back like in 2 weeks. And if you remember, nobody took their books home. The lockers were full. And then we were out till June 23rd. And then came the anxiety of which camp am I going to go to? I'm going to Camp A, it closed. I'm going to Camp B, it closed. I'm going to Camp C, D, E, doesn't exist anymore. Baruch Hashem, I'm so grateful to the people here in our community who tried really so hard, the boys and the girls, that each one should find a place for the summer. So imagine all these transitions. School, next week Zooming, next week we're not coming back, we are not going back, we are going back, we're not going back, camp. And then last week was a very challenging week for us because, as you know, we were supposed to start school regular classes, and we were stuck. A Jew is never stuck. We had the hashgacha pratis that we couldn't start regular classes. Why am I sharing that with you? Because Baruch Hashem, when I saw the girls in class yesterday, I felt like saying, "Shlichanu v'kiyamanu v'giyanu l'zman hazeh." This is what our dream was, and it was so hard to make it into reality. And thank you to my wonderful colleagues, my staff, my teachers, and parents, and the students. We made it. And that's why I say I'm so proud of them. Watching them in shul, watching them, we had 2 Yomei Iyun today, watching them in action, it is so good to see them in real life. And it's so good to see, even though some girls are having more anxiety and it's a transition period, they're happy to be back. I said, let's make an experiment and see. Can you tell a person smiling when you wear a mask? I don't know. Some people yes, some people not. But the truth is you can. You can see it in the eyes. And I can see it so often in the eyes. So why you're here today? Because this is where we're coming from. Where are we going to? We're going to hopefully a year of great accomplishment. And our accomplishments and what we're trying to do in Beis Rivka is based on 3 haras that we had the schus and the privilege of personally getting from the Rebbe. Many, many years ago, when we went into Yechidus, and some of you have told us before, my husband and I were told specifically to stay and work in Chinuch here. And my husband, of course, was a teacher for many years in YU, and I had the privilege of working in Beis Rivka. And the Rebbe told us, Chinuch is 3 points: Hara'ah, Hashpa'ah, and Hadracha. And today we're going to focus on some of those 3 points. Hara'ah, learning. Every single grade has a great principal. And one of the great, and you're going to be meeting them very soon, individual small groups. One of the main focuses, points of the great principles, of course, as well as myself, is hara'ah, teaching, learning, the positive learning experience. I call it TLW. What will the learner walk out with? The learner will, hopefully, the learner will gain insight, the learner will gain information, the learner will gain and see how it's relevant to their lives. TLW. But we're constantly trying to improve and to enhance. And so this year, we were very fortunate, thanks to our Vada Gashmi, allowing this to happen and encouraging me to do this. We have a person who's focused, Mrs. Ella Lerman, who's focused solely on curriculum in addition to her teaching responsibilities. How to enhance our teaching so the learner will truly walk out, whether it's in English or math or science or writing or any limud Kaddish, truly enhanced, truly gaining to the best possible way. And this is what she's focusing on. She worked on it an entire summer. For example, like now in Chodesh Elul, we're focusing in many subjects on the inyanim of Elul Tishrei. And so in every aspect, we want to improve our learning. In addition, we have Mrs. Adela Basovsky, who's focusing on upgrading our region curriculum. And again, the syllabus is there, but how to make it more real to the girls and more relevant and provide whatever support system they need. In addition, in the Hebrew department, I'm sure you're all familiar with Mrs. Gansberg. She is focusing on upgrading textual skills. We're starting with Chumash and going across the board. We have Mrs. Brook and Mrs. Pellis who are working on the Ivrit skills. Why am I sharing this with you? Because you should understand that Hara to us is of primary importance. You can't go to Hashpa'ah and Hadracha before you have the learning, before you have the Hara. The second aspect is, of course, Hadracha. Hadracha is from the lashon of derech, hand-holding, showing the way. How do we show the way? By hands-on experiences. Today we had a Yimei Iyun. We're having a challah bake next week. There are many things we cannot do right now because of the situation we're in. For example, every year we have a pre-slichas gathering. We couldn't do it this year because we can't have the entire school at one time. Unfortunately, we are limited in certain areas, but we're not stopping. There's constant projects going on. We just changed the system. Everything should be more grade-based because of the circumstances, and also we feel give the girls a greater chance to get involved. So Hadrach are all the things that Beis Rivka is so well known for, ranging from Shabbaton, which this year we're going to do in Shabbos instead, to production, to Hachana, to the Chidon, which we're having next month. Constantly activities, Hadracha, because this is the derech of your life. And you have to know what you're going for. You have to orient yourself, and you have to know which direction are you going, what is your derech. And then comes maybe the most important of all, which is Hashpa'ah. What is Hashpa'ah? Hashpa'ah is influence, but there are different kinds of influences. There's Hashpa'ah by the process of osmosis, simply being in the presence of certain people. So who are the people in school? We sent out an email a few weeks ago with the contact numbers. I'm not going to give any handouts because I'm going to go and, people don't keep handouts anymore. We'll resend it if you don't have all the contact numbers. But the people in the school are the people who are there for your child, who are their hashpa'ah. Of course, first and foremost, we have our great principals. We have Mora Goldschmidt for 9th grade, Mora Catherine for 10th grade, Mora Brook for 11th grade, and Mora Pekarski for 12th grade. In addition to the great principals, we changed the system a little bit this year, and we have Mrs. Lane is coming in as a consultant. Mrs. Sharfstein is running the day-to-day school activities in the afternoon, and the great principals are taking the holistic approach. These are my students, not 9 to 12:30, but these are my students an entire day. So they're going to be focused also on what's happening in the afternoon as well with the child. Is the girl happy? Is my student happy? Is my student needs someone to be her ombudsman, her advocate? This is who she's there for. We also changed the system as far as mechanchos are concerned. We have one mechaneches, we're calling it DSA. It stands for Director of Student Affairs, but really it's a mechaneches for the grade. And she's working together with the grade principal as hashpah for your child. She also is working with all the teachers, and each one's taking a different role, because we hope and we know everyone relates differently to different personalities. So one will relate more to this one, and one will relate more to that one. We want to give everyone the opportunity. In addition, we have shluchos, as you know. The shluchos are here to help girls individually in the morning, as well as to do programs with them. Many of you know that during COVID-19 Zooming, they were always there for the girls. The girls constantly called them for whatever, even also during the summer. So they're young women who are here every single day, and they're here for the girls. They hang out during recess, during lunch, as well as having learning with them after school and being there for them. All these people are part of the Hashpah picture. We also have a very, very strong guidance department. As you know, Eliza Hirsch, who's the head of guidance. In addition, this year she took another additional role of being operation manager and making sure all the administrative things are happening in the right way, the best possible way. But she's still the head of guidance, and she and Mushki Chazan, who also works for Rivka now as a social worker. In addition, we have a team from the Jewish board of 5 additional social workers. Why am I telling you this? Because you shouldn't hesitate. So many girls now need, I'm not talking about long-term therapy. I'm talking about even someone to talk to, social anxiety, returning to school. Somebody said, a parent said before, of just sitting in class and taking notes again. It's all part of transition, and that's not easy. So when we think about the things that impacted upon our students, one of the things we realize, major difference, positively and sometimes not, is the technology that exists today. We had, Baruch Hashem, I think Hashem made sure that the whole concept of Zooming was created so we should be able to have school for 4 months when schools closed. I'm sure that was the reason why. Actually, just recently, in Kfar Chabad magazine, I read an article where it says the Rebbe said to somebody who came to him, somehow the message was that the whole purpose of technology, this was when it first started, the first Chabad in cyberspace, that the whole purpose of cyberspace is to spread Torah and Chassidus and Yiras Hashem, Avas Hashem, etc. So the point is that, Baruch Hashem, because of technology, we were able to continue having school. At the same time, it's a very, very major factor in our lives, in our children's lives, and it definitely has a great impact upon them. A number of months ago, when we realized that technology, and because girls already were exposed to devices more than ever before, and they had to be online for hours a day, we realized this was maybe in May, I don't remember exactly. I started researching what can we do to teach our children about appropriate usage of technology, and more importantly, not standards, because standards are rules, not rules that the school gives or even the parent gives, but how should they realize themselves how it can impact them positively and chas v'shalom negatively. So we did a lot of research, and we talked to different schools, and we heard that in a number of Chabad schools across the country, they use the services of the Digital Citizenship Group in order to share with the students and the parents about how technology can impact one's life and what we can do to make sure the impact is positive. But then we said, I have so much experience already. So often we have a speech, a great speech. If you remember the parents who were here before, 2 years ago we had a wonderful address about technology. 3 years ago, last year, we have people come in and speak to the girls. But you know, it's wonderful to hear a great speech. And you go home and you're very inspired. And then the next week, it becomes just another factor in our lives. So after doing research and talking to Rabbanim and other people as well, we realized there has to be a consistent education. You have to learn about it, not in a one-time speech, an inspirational talk, or sometimes it's a very fearful talk, but they have to understand what we're doing. They're mature young ladies. They have to get it. They have to know where they're going by using one way or the other. And so after doing the research, we found out digital citizenship offers the following. They train our teachers from our community who know our standards and know who we are, because I'll tell you the truth, we're a very unique community. We're not a community that says no internet. There are communities like that, and maybe it's easier, black and white. No internet. And I have many French principals in schools like that. There are communities who say, listen, as long as it's safe and it's not self-destructive, you can do what you want. We're not saying either of those. We are saying, because the reality in Chabad is that we do acknowledge technology exists, and we do acknowledge the internet exists, and we do use it. We want the students to understand for life how to use it properly. So what we did last week, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, that we had digital, we contracted with them last year, that for this year we'll do the following. A number of steps. Step number 1, all the teachers heard a general presentation about how a teenager develops by a person in the field of psychology and by an educator from digital technology, from Dr. Shapiro and Mrs. Feldman? Yeah, Mrs. Feldman, about how it impacts their students. Then we had a very intense workshop for the teachers who are going to be presenting it to the school, to the students over the course of the year. We're going to do it like in a number of segments. Some classes will do it 10 times every week, once a week. Some are going to do it like 10 times consecutively. Entire education based on very thought out, well-researched sources, including Torah sources, every kind of realistic sources of their lives, their feelings, their emotions. That's what's going to be happening in school. But we felt that it's so important that you parents be on the same page as we are, because there's no point spending all this time and all this effort if parents are not going to be on the same page that we are. We're not talking now about standards. That's another discussion, and it's an important discussion. We have to have the discussion. Today's discussion is, what role can parents play? What role can the adults in our students' lives play to help them truly understand what it's all about? It's not a question, asur or mutar, you're allowed or not allowed. It is a question rather of, how does it impact upon my life? How will it help me develop my potential? How will it make me the best person I can be? So Dr. Shapiro is going to be presenting in a few minutes. Before he does, there are 2 things I'd like to be aware of. As we're doing it on live stream, the parents, all of you on live stream should have gotten in your email a Zoom link for the individual meetings with the grade principal and the grade mechaneches. It's going to be taking place in 4 different rooms following this presentation, and each of you from each grade got a different link because each one's going to be in a different Zoom room. The parents here are going to divide afterwards, and for a short period of time, you're going to hear from the grade principal, her goals for the year. You're going to meet her in person, and you're going to also hear from the mechaneches, her goals for the year, and you'll meet her in person, which will be the opening of a communication between you and the parent, between you and the school. I only want to reiterate one very important point. There are all kinds of presentations. Sometimes we're merely an audience. You listen, you know? Some things you like, some things you don't. But sometimes you're actually a participant. And today's talk, you are participants. Because we're all working together, we're all joining together. On one hand, to acknowledge that, Baruch Hashem, there are great things out there that can help us in our learning experience of our children. At the same time, we have to understand how it impacts upon them. So now it's 9:10, and I'm going to ask Dr. Shapiro to please take the mic and present. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I'm a big fan of Chabad, mainly because I get to speak without wearing a tie. So that just really works out very nicely for me. So I'm really, thank you for having me. So, give me one second, sorry. Sorry, 1 second. Can you squeeze in? You're a little... Okay. Ah, very good. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And I just want to say, to start with, that the idea of what we're doing here is not a one-and-done speech program. The idea is a partnership between school, parents, and students. And tonight, we're going to talk about technology, but we're going to talk about certain language that your children are going to be learning. You're going to have a shared language between yourselves, the school, your children. And that's going to make this strategy of educating about responsible use of technology so much richer and so much more valuable, as opposed to what I usually call drive-by programming. It's like a drive-by shooting happens and like everyone gets excited, but then they forget about it the next day or next week maybe. I mean, we're in New York now, so we know about drive-by shootings. It's become very popular. Our goal tonight is to review some of the issues around technology, how it impacts functioning, some strategies that you as parents can incorporate into your own day-to-day functioning at home, and really begin a dialogue. Tonight's the beginning of a conversation rather than a standalone event, to begin a dialogue that you will continue having with your children, with your family, and with the school. So that's just shaping the evening and framing things. So. The first thing I want to mention is that we tend to think about, when we hear the word technology, we tend to think about the internet and we think about the content on the internet, right? We think about internet, we think about filters, and that's a piece of it, but it's not everything. What we really want to think about is technology as a whole and our relationship with technology. You're going to hear me use the word relationship a lot because that's really what it is. Some of us have a functional, productive, and healthy relationship with technology. Others have a dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship with technology. Just by a raise of hands, how many of you experience what we call phantom vibrations? That's when your body vibrates, but the phone's not with you. Just me and that lady in the back? That's it? Just one of us? Technology is ubiquitous. It's part of our lives. We have smartphones, we have smart watches, we have gaming systems, we have computers, we have tablets, we have in our cars big screens, right? We are so enmeshed with technology that we are literally experiencing physical symptoms as a result of our technology engagement. We are literally experiencing physical symptoms. And it's not just you in the room, me and the lady in the back. 89% of people experience phantom vibrations. 89% of people. It's awkward if, well, me and you here, we're outnumbered. But when you're, we have a few over there, okay, hi. When you're davening and all of a sudden you like on Shabbos, you feel that you start doing this, right? It happens. It might be a little different for women than it is for men, but 89% of people experience phantom vibrations. But that just underscores the relationship with technology and how enmeshed it is. We are advancing so quickly when it comes to technology, but we created something a number of years ago called the Digital Citizenship Project, and at that time, Barack Obama was the president, and people thought this was a pathway to citizenship using the internet. So we would get phone calls like, how do I become a US citizen? And I'm like, no, that's not what we're about. Funny, since Trump became president, no one's called. No one thinks, I don't know what that's about. So what is digital citizenship? Digital citizenship are the norms of appropriate and responsible behavior when it comes to technology. I'm going to break that down. The norms of appropriate and responsible behavior when it comes to technology. So if I were to ask you, Beis Rivka spends a lot of money, time, effort to bring a program like this in, and the presenter comes in and starts the evening by taking a selfie. Is that normal? Is that appropriate? Is that responsible? Now what's interesting is some people say, yeah, why not? Other people say no, right? Some people say yes, some people say no. We have disagreement. So one thing is digital citizenship, norms of appropriate and responsible behavior. But what are those norms? Those norms are going to differ from community to community. It may be different in Crown Heights than Lakewood. And it may be different in the 5 towns and Crown Heights. So when we have to think, what is normal, what is appropriate? I have a friend who did this at a chuppah. Just so you don't think I am cyberbullying anybody, everyone in the picture gave me permission, and my friend likes being known as the questionable selfie guy. So do you think this is appropriate? Is it normal? Is it responsible? Yeah, I see a lot of no's. Okay. So he thinks it's great. Other people think it's funny too. The parents of the Kala also thought it was kind of funny. So that just gives us an idea that there isn't a universal standard when it comes to technology, and part of that means that our engagement with technology means perspective taking, right? And thinking how other people are going to perceive our behavior when it comes to technology, how other people are going to interpret what it is that we're doing with technology. So whether it's pictures that we're posting or communication, or how we interact with technology in a public setting, all of that goes into digital citizenship, the behaviors that are acceptable, appropriate, in order for us to maximize what technology has to offer. Technology is awesome. It's amazing. There's like so much opportunity with it, but it also comes with challenges. And if we can better understand those challenges, we are going to have, for ourselves, a better, more functional relationship with technology. And our children that are growing up in this technology-driven world will be much more successful as well. Oftentimes, parents come to my lectures and they're looking for what I call the magic pill. The magic pill is just tell me what filter to get. Very simple, right? Tell me what age should my child have a smartphone? What should just be the shut-off time? Just tell me that, and that's all I want to know. Technology is a very complex problem that requires complex strategies. And so if there were a magic pill, that'd be great. But the reality is technology is not just about content. It's not just about the internet. It's not just about a filter. It's about our lives and our interactions with it, the opportunities it presents and the challenges it presents. So there was an author, his name was Charles Dickens. He wrote a book called A Tale of Two Cities, and the opening line is, and I just love the line, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It's a famous book. But what follows that is, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. And when I think about the times we're living in today, I genuinely feel that we live in the age of wisdom and we live in the age of foolishness. We have such opportunity. Technology offers us amazing, amazing opportunities. Accessibility, productivity, information, connectivity. When we talked about this opportunity that Zoom brought, right, what would we have done pre-internet with a situation like this? Right? Reb Aaron Lopyansky from Washington, D.C., he's a Rosh Hashiva in Washington, D.C., he quoted the pasuk as it relates to this, Umale kol haaretz dei es Hashem, right? That we have spread Torah so far and wide because of technology. So accessibility, productivity, information, connectivity. I really feel I relate to the connectivity piece. I had a daughter the past 2 years who was in Eretz Yisrael for the past 2 years. And I know what a lot of you are thinking is, how can a guy so young have a daughter in Eretz Yisrael, right? No? That joke went over so much better 4 years ago. But the answer is moisturizer. I prefer L'Occitane with 5% shea butter. That's my preference. But so I had a daughter in Eretz Yisrael, and what was amazing was that we could communicate, we could connect, we could see each other and talk. But the whole idea of spending time in Eretz Yisrael away from your family in total institution is not being tethered, is being able to have those opportunities to make your own decisions. So the same benefit, the best of times, the age of wisdom, the benefits that we get from technology and connectivity also has that downside. And so our goal is to have a better understanding of that. So technology offers us these four things. But technology also impacts social, behavioral, psychological, and day-to-day functioning. These four key areas, social, behavioral, psychological, and day-to-day, if we better understand how it impacts us in that way, and we can make more thoughtful and deliberative decisions around our own technology behavior, we are going to be so much better off, and it's going to be an age of wisdom for us as opposed to an age of foolishness. Now, I have a confession to make. I happen to love technology. Just raise your hand if you also love technology. It's just me and that lady in the back again. Everybody, don't be shy. We love it, right? It's great. We love it so much. As a global community, 6 billion out of the world's 7 billion people own a mobile phone, but only 4.5 billion have a toilet. That's a fact. United Nations study. Well, I don't know if you believe every study that comes out of the United Nations, but that idea, we really prioritize technology. We also have a challenge, what I call the generational disconnect. Do you ever get the feeling your kids know way more about technology than you do? Right? Yeah? No, not you? No, okay. But yeah, we have this generational disconnect, and very similar to immigration in the 1920s. When parents were speaking Yiddish and kids were speaking English, it created a challenge, right? It created a growth challenge. We're experiencing the same thing today. We are speaking a different language than our kids are. They're speaking digital, and we're speaking the proverbial Yiddish. I mean, that's what's happening so often. So, I like this text between a mother and child. Your great aunt just passed away, LOL. Why is that funny? It's not funny, David. What do you mean? Mom, LOL means laughing out loud. Oh my goodness, I sent that to everyone. I thought it meant lots of love. Yeah, you're laughing, but you've all been there where you didn't quite get the lingo, right? You've all been there. Everybody knows what FOMO is? Fear of missing out? FOMO. Okay, all right, so you're a little bilingual. That's good. But I will say this. There is a generational disconnect, but we do have some things up on our children. They do not know what this is. They don't know what this is. Although at most Chabads, they tell me it's a pushka. So I don't know. And they certainly don't know the relationship between these two items. I can see some of the younger parents in here don't know either. Just turn to someone who looks a little older, they'll explain. This was my adolescence right here in an image. I am fortunate in some of the work that I do. I get to collect data from communities across the United States. I have close to 4,000 student surveys, mostly middle schoolers. So the numbers you're going to see tonight are mostly middle school age. So just add numbers. Plus COVID has also impacted those numbers. I present a lot of data in my presentations. Some people say that my presentations have too much data in them. Actually, about 72% of people say there's too much data in my presentations. But that is not one of my strongest jokes. And I can tell based on your reaction, so we'll keep moving. Anyway, so 62% of kids have a smartphone. These are 5th to 8th graders in Jewish day schools and yeshivas across the United States. 85% own an internet-capable device. Social media is all the rage. Kids like social media. These are the top 3 social media apps that kids use today. From left to right, that is Snapchat, WhatsApp, and Instagram. These are the top 3 social networking sites, but they are not equal. They are not created equal. Qualitatively, Snapchat and Instagram are very different than WhatsApp, and it's important for parents to understand those differences, and we're going to touch on those. 77% of kids are active users of social media. Gaming, also a big deal these days, even amongst girls. Girls like to play games as well. Whether it's on their phones or even Xbox, games like Minecraft become very popular even amongst the girls. Less so, I guess, Madden, NFL, not so popular amongst girls, more with the boys. But even games like Fortnite and other games that are socially driven, kids are playing. 81% of kids are active users of digital gaming, and 49% report playing video games frequently. As I mentioned, Fortnite was a very popular game this past year. They're currently in a lawsuit with Apple, so they lost some of their market share. But this is what happens to kids who play too much Fortnite. This is a tornado victim. You'll notice there's a truck upside down behind him. You can see that. And let's see what he has to say about the tornado.
I was sitting at home, and I was playing Fortnite, and all of a sudden I hear a bunch of noise, and I look out the window, and I start seeing the roof come off the house in front of me. But then I sit back down because I only got like a couple people left in my game. I'm gonna try to finish the game.
And what's going through your mind as you said you're in the bathroom with your sister and dad?
I'm like, honestly, I was thinking about the game.
That's what happens. And I think some of you know when your kids play video games, there's like there literally could be a tornado going on around them. They will not notice. So that's what's happening. Gaming has become very big. Videos, even this is surprising just from the data I've collected, even in the most religious communities, and where they espouse that they don't have internet in their homes. What's remarkable, Netflix and YouTube seem to be very popular no matter what kind of community it is. 92% of kids report watching videos, with 57% of them reporting doing so frequently. So videos, gaming, very big. Social media, very big. Technology ownership engagement, overall very big. And even as every year that we go on, these numbers get bigger, and the age that kids start getting devices become younger and younger. So let's get on to the main part here. They told me the Wi-Fi was down, so I'm going to log in the old-fashioned way. Crowd favorite. People seem to like that. Remember the days of AOL? Right? You'd get those discs, 99 free hours, and you'd come running home, you're very excited about it, and you'd have to like dial up, and like none of the phone numbers would work. There's like a whole slew of numbers. You go down the list, and by like number 35, you'd get a number that worked. but you wouldn't want to tell any of your neighbors about it because you didn't want them using that number, and so you like kept it hush hush, and then finally you'd get online, and then someone in the house would pick up the phone, and it would break the connection, and then you'd be really upset, and then you'd have to start the whole process over again. You'd make a big public declaration, I'm going online, nobody pick up the phone, and that's how it was. You'd finally get online, and there was absolutely nothing to do. Except at that time, I think there was a certain sense of calm and peace, or menuchas hanefesh in our homes that we just don't have today. There's like this elevated stress level that when we think back to those times, how much simpler it was, and it really wasn't even so long ago. You know, it's amazing how things have advanced in such a way. I often get the question, well, is this really that much different than radio or television or other technology advancements? And the truth is, yes, it's completely different. The radio, from when it was introduced to market, it took 34 years to reach 50 million users. 34 years for the social fabric of society to absorb it in a healthy and responsible way. Television took 14 years from when it was introduced to market to reach 50 million users. Internet took 4 years to reach 50 million users. Fortnite took about 2 weeks. Zoom, for example, went from January to March. They went from about 20 million users to about over 100 million users in a 3-month period. So when you think about how fast we absorb technology, that's why we're having phantom vibrations. We have not absorbed it in a slow, methodical, thoughtful, and responsible way. And so that's where some of the challenges come in. And you're going to hear me use the words thoughtful and deliberative repeatedly, because that's the only way to approach technology. Just because Amazon is having a sale on Kindles doesn't mean it should be your first go-to Hanukkah present. You know, just because the Alexa is on sale or it comes for free, you need to think about what kind of environment that's going to change in your house, right? Just these ideas, to be thoughtful. And you may decide to do it, and that's fine, but it has to be thoughtful and strategic. So when we think about the impacted domains, behavioral, social, psychological, day-to-day, we'll go through each one of these. Behavioral, we see dependence, we see distraction, we see impulsivity, disinhibition, and sleep. These are key areas that are impacted by technology. I think dependence and distraction is something we can all relate to. But the 3 areas, impulsivity, disinhibition, and sleep, are 3 areas that don't get as much attention that I think is so important. 39% of students admit to having emailed or texted something that they later regretted. So what is impulsivity? Impulsivity is doing something without thinking about the potential consequences or outcomes. And there's something about technology that promotes impulsivity, right? When I was a kid, if I was angry at someone, I was told, you know, write them a letter, put it in an envelope, put it in your drawer for a week, wait, and then by the time you're ready to send it, usually the issue resolved itself. That's how we dealt with things then when we were upset. What do we do now when we're upset? Right? We post, we blog, we tweet, we comment, right? We message, right? We're upset about something. We have the power of technology. The technology promotes impulsivity. And when you have kids, adolescents particularly, that tend to be more impulsive in general, it's a dangerous combination to give them a device that promotes impulsivity with an impulsive nature to begin with. But it's not just kids, adults as well. More than half of adults have texted or posted something that they later regretted. 22% report doing so weekly. On a weekly basis, sending something out that they regret. So that idea, the relationship between technology and impulsivity, is a very strong one. And again, just by being aware of that relationship, we can be more thoughtful and deliberative. Online disinhibition. Psychologist John Suller in 2004 identified what he calls the online disinhibition effect, and that is when our language and behavior online is inconsistent with our real values, right? So we're more likely to do or say something in the online digital realm than we are in a face-to-face conversation. We're more likely to post something or text something or say something that we would never say face-to-face. It's not a new concept. In the 50s, Stanley Milgram, a psychologist, did this famous experiment with electroshocks where he had individuals, he wanted to study post-World War II obedience, like how could the Nazis have just followed the orders of their superiors. And what he found was that people tend, when they're given directives, they tend to follow them. But what he also found was when people are made to be anonymous, they also become much more cruel. They would deliver longer, stronger, and even fatal shocks as part of the experiment. So that idea of anonymity, or even relative anonymity that the internet gives, promotes negative behavior. So if I were to send you an email from my email address, ellie@ellieshapiro.com, it's very clear who it is, but I'm still more likely to do or say something because of that perceived anonymity. So understanding impulsivity, disinhibition, right? And our kids with technology, if they don't have that language, the language is what gives them the power to manage it. So they're going to learn about impulsivity and disinhibition, but now you know about it too. And so that communication, that discussion can go a long way in understanding the relationship with technology. Kids sleep with their devices within reach. Actually, about 75% of kids sleep with their devices within reach. Why is that an issue? It affects your sleep, right. It impacts sleep. Right. Right, but we know that almost 80% of kids that have devices keep them within reach when they go to sleep. What will they tell you? Why do they need their device next to their bed? Exactly, to wake them up, the alarm clock. Is there an amazing savings in Crown Heights or some sort of dollar type store? Family Dollar, okay, great. So they sell like a little brown box with red numbers. And you can, that alarm is way more annoying than a smart device. So yeah, it's a real issue that kids they have their device at night, they're up late with their devices, the artificial light from the device actually impacts melatonin production in the brain. Melatonin is what helps us sleep. It tricks the brain into thinking that it's daytime, so they have a harder time falling asleep, they have a harder time staying asleep. They are concerned that on their grade chat, something might happen at 3 in the morning that might impact their social experience for the rest of high school, that if they don't know it in real time, it's going to be a significant problem. And so they're worried. They have the FOMO. That's what phantom vibrations are, almost that FOMO. And this is not a religious issue. There's a Rosh Yeshiva in South Florida who told me he's addicted to his smartphone. He gets shilas all the time. So he's always checking, did I get a shilah? Did I get a shilah? Did I get a shilah? Right? So it's a functional behavioral issue of our relationship with technology. And so we have a hard time falling asleep and a hard time staying asleep. Harvard University did a study a number of years ago where they compared reading an e-reader at bedtime versus reading a book at bedtime. Okay? I mean, you don't have to have gone to Harvard to figure out what the findings were. What happens when you read a book at bedtime? Fall asleep, right? You don't need melatonin or Ambien or just open a book. They found when they read I have a book on my nightstand that I've been reading for the last 8 months, and I'm only on page 2. So I fall right asleep. But what they found was that reading from an e-reader actually impacted the quality of the sleep as well. So it's that same behavior. So you can imagine what sort of playing video games or social interaction where it energizes you and it triggers you cognitively, what kind of impact that might have as well. So one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids is a good night's sleep. Any teacher can tell you when a child walks in and didn't get a good night's sleep. You can see it right away. One of the greatest predictors of a child being successful on any given day in school, maximizing their academic and social potential, is the quality of sleep they had the night before. If they didn't sleep well, they are not going to be able to tolerate any adversity, any challenges, and any struggles. They'll just give up. They'll be irritable. A lot of the irritability from teenagers comes from a lack of sleep. And so one of the best gifts we can give them is a good night's sleep. Keep their phone away from them at bedtime. This is a picture of a professional baseball player in a dugout. Just reminds me to tell you the story about the time I had a meeting with the New York Mets. Any Mets fans here? No? No? Even in a New York crowd, I can't find a Mets fan. You know someone who was once a Mets fan. Is that? Very hard to find. Anyway, so I had a meeting with the New York Mets. None of you are impressed with that. I should just change the story to the Yankees, but it wouldn't be true. I had a meeting with the New York Mets, and they were telling me about a player that was taking frequent bathroom breaks during the game. Originally, they thought there might be a medical issue until they realized he was updating his Instagram feed during a game. When you think about that, that's quite remarkable. You know, if 40,000 people were to come watch you work, right? Well, it's the Mets. Like maybe 8,000 people would come to watch you work. You would be a little nervous about checking your Instagram, but that is how strong the dependency and the FOMO is when it comes to technology. All right, so those are some of the behavioral concerns. Digital distraction, social dependence, these are all social issues that we see. Online aggression, cyberbullying, miscommunication. We see scenes like this all the time. Digital disconnection. I call it a regression to parallel play. You know how preschoolers play next to each other but not with each other. So we as adults have regressed to that stage in life. UCLA did a fascinating study where they measured kids' ability to read facial expressions and social cues. And they took a baseline study, and then they sent them to sleepaway camp without any technology. And then they measured them again. And what they found was that after only 5 days in sleepaway camp without any technology, their ability to read facial expressions, social cues, and form meaningful connections vastly improved. It's a fascinating study, which you don't hear much about. I don't know why. But it's a fascinating study because it teaches us two very important lessons about technology and social interactivity. One is technology is having a negative effect on our social interactions, but two is we can repair it by taking breaks from technology. When is it that we connect with our family and children best? When is that? Well, I was going to say Thanksgiving, but yeah, Shabbos also. Yeah, it's amazing. You cannot compare the quality of the communication and the connectivity on Shabbos. Why is that? What is so different about Shabbos? You don't have the technology, and it's not even on your mind. You know, so that idea, in my own home, we do something during the week called going dark for dinner, where we don't have any technology at the dinner table. It's not even in the kitchen. We just put it away. And it's only about 15 minutes. It's not like a crazy, amount of time, but it's 15 minutes, and the quality of that dinner, it doesn't hit that Shabbos level, but the quality of the dinner is so significantly improved, and finding out about our children's day and what they experience and what happens, you find out so much information. It's really amazing. With my own group of friends, when we go out, we do something called phone stacking. Right? We pile up the phones on the table. Whoever grabs their phone first has to pay for dinner. Right? You got great restaurants here, so you should. But we actually have one friend who's addicted to his phone, so we invite him every time. And yeah, he's paid for dinner for the last 3 years. He hasn't figured it out. So there's something about the distraction that the device has. Numerous studies and find that even when kids are studying, if their phone is on the table, right? It serves as a distraction, even if they don't touch it. Even in the business world, if your phone is there, if it's in your visual proximity, it will reduce your ability to focus. I shared this story about the Rebbe. He was having a chidus with a woman named Chana Sharfstein. I'll just read it. So she was back in New York and returned to see the Rebbe. When she entered his office, she was carrying a tape recorder, the old type of recorder used in the 1950s with spinning reels and tape. As she set it up, the Rebbe asked her not to tape anything. He explained that when a person has a tape recorder, his or her attention becomes directed to the machine, and the person is constantly checking to see if the tape is moving, how far it's moved, whether it's coming to an end, etc. If you use the tape recorder, the Rebbe warned, you're not going to be listening to me intently, and I want you to listen to what I say and be involved in what I'm saying. So even in the 1950s, the Rebbe knew that technology, all the research bears it out now, but technology on the table serves as a distraction, and it's something to think about when we are interacting with friends, with our children, with our spouses, what role technology is playing. This, I'm going to skip that video. This is actually something that kids are experiencing early on. We are giving kids devices. I know you're a high school audience, but it's important to understand that today, whether you have younger kids or whether it's your grandchildren, making sure that the kids don't become dependent on devices as preschoolers. Because today what's happening is we're giving kids devices just to keep them quiet, whether they're 1, 2, 3, right? Here's the device. What happens when you go to the doctor and the child gets a vaccination, a shot? What do? We give them the phone to calm them down. So what are they learning? They're learning at that young age that a screen is the go-to for self-soothing and relaxation. That should be the job of the parent. So if we want to create a healthy attachment with our children, particularly at the younger age, we have to be very careful with how we use technology, but even older, if we want to interact and connect with our children, the devices, the screens have to be put away. What kind of message is it? I don't know what I did with my phone, but what kind of message is it? What kind of message is it when we're talking to someone and we're like this? Right? What are we saying? If I were to give my whole speech like this, what message is that? Right? It's something that we actually see in businesses with baby boomers, Generation Xers, and millennials, the different values that they associate with technology. And it's interpreted as rude often, but just understanding the message that we're sending to our kids. If our child's telling us something that happened during the day and we do one of these while they're talking to us, right? What's the message? So that's something that we as parents can think about as well. And it's something that we should model for our kids. You know, so when we're talking to our children, we can say a word that's up there can be interpreted in so many ways. Most communication is paraverbal, meaning it's not the words themselves. It's the body language, the volume, the intonation, all the other attributes that go along with it. The words like this word that's up there, you're all thinking about it in a different way. Some of you, those of you that are here that are like relaxed and chilled, you're like, yeah, whatever, that's good. Those of you that are a little more uptight, a little anxiety, it's like, oh, whatever. Right? So the word itself, it's all the powerful. In fact, the example I give, on Friday night, after you wash for hamotzi before you have challah, you have entire conversations without saying a single word. You know what I'm talking? No, right? So you don't actually say the word. So that shows us that it's the paraverbal piece that is so powerful, and it's not the words themselves. My wife is this is just a story. My wife is the sisterhood president of our shul in Far Rockaway, and she organizes a boutique every year where she has vendors that come out. So she had she bought a hat from one of the vendors that she brought out for my daughter, and the hat was too small. So she texted the vendor and said, hi, it's Chaya Shapiro from the White Shul. The hat I bought is too small. I was wondering if I could exchange it. And the response was, I'm sorry that your daughter has a big head. No returns accepted. Good luck. So now, as it turns out, she had texted the wrong person. That's a side point of the story. But the reality is it's that impulsivity, that disinhibition, not thinking about what your actions might do, that lack of connectivity that we see in the digital realm, and understanding that behavior around technology. That person should come to one of my courses. Okay, psychological. We see a relationship between technology engagement, anxiety, depression, isolation, addiction. We all have been there where we forgot our cell phone at home, right? We forgot it at home, we left for the day, and we're like, oh my gosh, oh my God, I forgot my cell phone at home. No one can get in touch with me, right? We panic, right? That anxiety. We're like, oh my God, I got the cell phone at home. No one can get in touch with me. What am I going to do? And those of us that are moderately well adjusted, I mean, just like a little bit, goes from like, oh my God, we go from like, I forgot my cell phone at home. No one can get in touch with me. Wow. And then like a calm and a peace come over us, like from the AOL days, right? That Menuchas HaNefesh is back for a little bit. And it's like, why don't I leave my phone at home all the time? This is great. It's amazing. But for many people, that's not the case. There was many studies has been duplicated a number of times where they look at teenagers and technology. Obviously, teenagers say their cell phones, their smartphones are so important to them. It's the key to their social life, and it's really important. But what we actually find is the more importance they place on their devices, the more important it is to them, the higher their levels of anxiety are, and the lower their levels of subjective well-being. They're less happy, higher levels of anxiety, and lower academic performance. They don't perform as well in school either. So it's that relationship with technology that we've talked about before. There's an unhealthy, and by the way, each one of your kids will have a different relationship. There's like their personal style and their predispositions will sort of inform. If you have children that are more melancholy or have higher like anxiety, particularly social anxiety, they are more likely to develop an unhealthy relationship with technology. So that's something to keep in mind when you're giving your kids devices. When you're going to have to watch each kid differently and their relationship with technology. When I was growing up, I was an only child. And that really bothered my siblings a lot that I was treated that way, but we have to approach our children as if they're only children. Each one of our kids are going to have different personalities, different traits, different moods, and how they interact and relate to technology is important. This picture would remind me to tell you about the Mets again, but not for this audience, so I'm just going to keep moving. Okay, anybody know what this is? Hashtag, excellent. Very, very, very advanced. Anyone else want to take a shot at it? Pound sign, tic-tac-toe, good, all wrong. I mean, they are, but in case you're ever in a trivia contest and someone asks what this is, I don't know when that's going to happen, but if it does happen, it is actually called an octothorpe. Random information. Okay. So what's interesting is around technology, one of my favorite psychologists, two psychologists actually, not my psychologist because I don't like my psychologist, but two of my favorite psychologists, Peterson and Seligman, they founded the positive psychology movement, and they did a fascinating study called the positive journaling study where they had people write down 5 things that they were grateful for at the end of every day, and one group did nothing. And what they found was that people that would express gratitude and things that they were happy about were overall happier people. Just a simple act of expressing gratitude and et cetera. So when it comes to digital technology, are we more likely to share positive things and write positive things, or share and write negative things? Negative. You're a negative person then. That's what that tells you. You're projecting on other people, but no, I'm kidding. Yeah, but you're right. The research actually supports that negative things were twice as likely to post negative things and share negative things. One study looking at hashtags online, they compared positive hashtags like success, love, best, compared to negative, fail, I hate, worse, and they found that for every positive one, there were 2 negative ones. So if the Peterson and Seligman study teaches us that expressing positivity makes us happier, what does expressing negativity do? Makes us miserable. When we look at negative stories and we share negative stories, it actually makes us less happy. And so one of the things that we can do in strategy when we are thoughtful and deliberative with technology is posting positive, is sharing positivity, using technology for the positive. These are all things to think about, and these are all things that your kids are going to hear about in their own strategies with using technology. 70% of kids use technology longer than they intended. That's an issue because it's an issue of self-regulation. We all know that when we can't self-regulate our own behaviors, right, we don't feel good. It actually makes us feel out of control. It gives us more anxiety when we're not in control of things. So how kids use technology, we know that kids are using technology more than they want to. They want to play a video game, they want to watch a show, right? Maybe we let them watch a show on Netflix, and then like 8 episodes later, they're still watching the show, right? And so these things become issues, or when it's video games, I'm just going to play for 20 minutes, then 3 hours later, they're playing. And these are things that when you can't regulate, you don't feel good. It actually reduces our overall levels of happiness. Now we're just talking about exposure to inappropriate websites, graphic content. You know, even if you have a filter, kids are going to be exposed to graphic violence, that sort of thing. Even on quote-unquote kosher websites, they show dash cam footage, car accidents, plane crashes, like really disturbing imagery that when kids see this, it actually has a significant impact on their well-being. We've polled kids across the United States, and 63% of them have seen an image or video clip that they found disturbing. And so keeping that, and this was middle schoolers, so by the time they get to high school, they are definitely being impacted by that. Day-to-day impacts, schoolwork, exposure, criminal charges, shidduchim, employment, all of this goes back to what we call a digital footprint. Digital footprint is the residue of what you do or say online. So if any of you are in the like the shidduch scene and you want to look someone up, you go to Facebook or do some Google search and you see about their family, right? That's your digital footprint. Whatever is there is it's going to say about you. So when kids are impulsive and disinhibited and they start posting things on social media or sharing things, what kind of digital footprint are they creating for themselves? How is that going to impact them now and in the future? So again, one of the things that they're going to learn about, even just sharing a picture, does this picture reflect well on me now? Is this picture going to reflect well on me in the future? Do my friends that are in the picture, does it reflect well on them, right? It's to be thoughtful and deliberative, addressing the impulsivity, addressing the disinhibition, addressing the compulsivity, all these issues around technology. Not too long ago, Harvard University rescinded the acceptances of 10 students because of offensive comments they made in a private Facebook group. So when we think about how digital technology can impact your opportunities, they can and they do. There are so many people that have learned that the hard way, and hopefully we can teach our kids to create positive digital footprints and not negative ones. Part of them is understanding that everything they do online is public and permanent. It's not within the scope of this presentation to discuss MAC IDs and IP addresses, but everything you do online is tracked. if you weren't aware of that. The way you know that is that if you ever did a search for a pair of shoes, all of a sudden it's appearing in your email and your social media and your Amazon and everywhere. Even on CoLive, it's going to pop up the shoes that you wanted, right? So understanding that everything we do is tracked, there are IP addresses, and all that information is public, teaching kids that that is the case. One of the challenges that we see is a little bit of the technology by the numbers. We see some disconnects. Again, I've been fortunate to collect data. 95% of parents report having set rules in the house, which is amazing. 95% of parents set rules in the house. Actually, yeah. Unfortunately, only 41% of kids say there are set rules in their house. I'm not playing gotcha here. It just happens to be. Obviously, the kids don't realize there are set rules in the house, because obviously you have them. 89% of parents report having conversations about using the internet responsibly. Good job. 89% of you having conversations with your kids, except only 31% of kids say my parents have conversations with me about using the internet responsibly. So again, that disconnect. 26% of parents report that their kids have been disturbed by online video and images, but we know that the number is 63%, right? So we have a little bit of a disconnect. So why is that? You know, why is it that our kids aren't getting it? Right? So I think that I have an answer that I'd like to flesh out with you. I always felt that if this career in public speaking didn't work out, I would be a mentalist. Everybody knows what a mentalist is? Actually, don't tell me, I know. No, a mentalist is like they can look at you and tell what you're thinking, right? So I'm going to do a little exercise with you if that's okay, okay? I'm going to do, when I want you to answer, I'm going to do this magic mentalist hand motion. So I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to give me the answer, okay? Okay? All right, now we're waking up. Good. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question, you're going to give me the answer, and if I am correct, it will appear on the screen over there. Fair enough? Okay? What is 1 plus 1? See if I'm right. Yes? Can I get a round of applause? You don't seem that impressed. All right. All right, your child comes home from school, and you say, how was your day? Great. Boring? Boring. Let's try this again. We got to all be into this. How was your day? I heard good, fine. I heard a Baruch Hashem. All right, let's see. Good, fine. Can I get a round of applause? The good parents in the room won't let them get away with that. You will follow up with the following. What did you do today? Can I get a round of applause? So now, how did I know that? I'm not really a mentalist, I confess. That's the conversation that almost everybody has with their kids. What did you do today? You know, how was your day? Fine. What did you do today? Nothing. Can I play with the iPad? Usually that's the mother asking if I can play with the iPad. No, that's usually how the day goes. And so when we're having these conversations, and it never gets into like really more in-depth conversations, sometimes on Shabbos we get to have those conversations, but rarely during the week. And so it's important as parents that we understand that our interactions and our communication with our kids has to be more than these surface-oriented conversations. And then they will know if there are set rules in the house, and then they will know if we've had conversations around technology. So as parents, what can we do? We understand that technology, it's great, it's amazing. It also has challenges, social, psychological, behavioral, day-to-day. What can we do as parents? And the answer is, one, there's no magic pill. So let's forget that. This has to be a sustained effort on behalf of our families and with our children. It's an ongoing conversation, an ongoing dialogue. It's not like we just say, okay, here are the rules about technology and then we're done. It's an ongoing observation and discussion about their relationship. And yes, it's exhausting to be a parent today. It's exhausting. We're tired, and it's almost counterintuitive because it seems easier if we just leave them with the technology, we can rest. But the reality is we have to be engaged with our children, communicate with our children. And so I have a few rules that I think are important when it comes to technology. Rule number one is to have rules. Right? We're talking about a lot of the underlying issues here, and they're going to learn about that. So they're going to appreciate the rules a lot more. But it's so important to have rules. It's almost secondary what those rules are. So whether your rules are no screens an hour before bedtime, right? Or that sounds too advanced for some people. No sleeping with your phone next to your bed. When you're on a device, the door to your room has to be open. No devices at the table during dinner, going dark for dinner. No screen time until you've done your homework. I don't know, whatever the rules are. It's almost irrelevant what they are as long as there are rules. So kids understand that there's a time for technology use and a time for not technology use. That they can be more thoughtful and deliberative with how they approach technology. So number one is to have rules. Only 41% of kids say there are rules in the house. So that's number one, having rules. Rule number two, we got to discuss the rules. Sometimes we have rules in our head, and we expect our kids to know those rules without having actually told it to them. Obviously, they should know they shouldn't be on their device till 3 in the morning. No, we have to tell them that. We have to communicate what the expectations are. Kids need to know what the parental expectations are for them to be able to follow through on that. And by the way, that doesn't mean they're going to listen all the time, but they need to know what the rules are. So one, have rules. Rule two, discuss rules. Rule three, and this is the hardest one, keep the rules. Sometimes we set rules. Sometimes we set rules that are unrealistic and that are not sustainable. All right? Sometimes we do that. Like, you're never going on the computer again. That's not a rule and it's not sustainable. All right? So we need to think about how we set the rules so we can keep the rules. So when we go dark for dinner in my house, everyone knows, and we keep that. We sustain it. It's ongoing. So keeping the rules is important. And our kids know that they can wear us down. They do know that. So it's important to set realistic rules that are implementable and sustainable. As a parent, we have to know the technology we're giving our kids. We can't just say, well, our kids know more about technology than we do. It's very easy to learn about technology today. If you have a question about a device, if you have a question about the content or anything like that, it's very easy to find it. Go on YouTube, how to set restrictions on an iPhone. Go on, there's a website that I recommend if your kids say, oh, I want to get this app or I want to watch this video. There's a website called Common Sense Media. Common Sense Media will give you a lot of the information you need to make informed decisions. But it shouldn't just be they ask for it and they get it. My kids actually know that whatever they ask me for when it comes to technology, it's at least 24 hours before they're going to get it. At least 24 hours. So that's something to think about. When your child comes to you and says, okay, I want to get this app, by the way, your kids should not be able to download their own apps. So when you set a phone, again, in the screen time settings, if it's an iPhone, every device is different. But in the screen time settings, you can set the App Store to not be able to download apps. Your kids should not be able to download apps on their own. They should have to come to you when they want something. So let's say they come to you and they say they want Snapchat, as my kids have come to me over the years. It's important to know, it's actually cut off on the top, but in any time you download something from the App Store, it'll have an age recommendation. It says that up on the top, you can't see it, but it says 12 years old plus. Right? So that's what they say, 12-year-olds plus. So that's the first step to see if your child is under 12, don't get it for them, right, off the bat. But then you want to look and see the reasons why it's 12-year-old plus. And on the right side, you'll see a list of many of the reasons. And for the vast majority of us, the content that Snapchat or Instagram that they rate as appropriate for a 12-year-old, we don't think would be appropriate for a 12-year-old. Or an 18-year-old, or a 21-year-old for that matter. So it's something to think about. One is knowing the devices, knowing the content, and knowing their relationship with those items. 6 suggestions for family success. It's hard to say, so I'm only going to say that once. 1, screen time should be age appropriate, right? The amount of time they spend in front of a screen, it's going to differ. There's different types of screen time. Obviously, if they're doing homework or they're learning or watching shiurim, that's a different type of screen time than playing video games and watching Netflix, right? And so again, this goes back to this thoughtful and deliberative approach to when it comes to technology. We shouldn't have 2 hours of screen time or 1 hour because not all screen time is equal, right? And so we have to be strategic about that. Have tech-free time, go dark for dinner. Have personal and family rules, follow them. I have a confession. When I am davening Shacharis and I'm wearing talis and tefillin, I do not have my phone with me. No need for the applause, please. It's not that impressive. I just feel like, it's like you don't have your phone. The women don't know what I'm talking about. For the few men in here, it happens sometimes men in shul, they have their phone with them when they're davening. Most women are like, why would you have your phone with you when you're davening? I get that. So I don't have my phone with me when I daven. It just seems like contradictory. The good news is my shacharis is down to 6.5 minutes. So that's the good news. Somehow there's a correlational relationship between Hebrew reading fluency and not having your phone with you during davening. It's an amazing thing. So having personal and family rules, following them, manage and model healthy tech behavior. Our kids look to us to see what it is that we do to model that behavior. So if we're on our devices all the time, if we come home and we get on our device, if we are distracted when our kids are talking to us, that's the behavior that they're going to follow. That's going to become their normal. So we have to not just tell them what our expectations are, but model those behaviors as well. Actually play and spend time with your children. You know, spending time with your children is an amazing thing, and putting the devices away, because if we keep checking our device while we're with our kids, the message is that we are not. I heard a great line. I was speaking in Cleveland a number of years ago, and someone said, he asked himself, what is the apple of my eye? Is it my child, or is it this apple? Right, so that's a way of thinking about it. Screen time, by the way, can be a shared experience. And I think this is important. For kids who are heavily invested in technology, spend time, get to know what your kids are doing online. Get to know who their friends are and who they're chatting with or what they're doing on their phone. If they have an iPhone, there's something called screen time, which actually measures what they're doing, how much time they're spending on social media, how much time they're spending watching videos, how many time they're spending using productivity tools, you know. And then what's interesting is kids today are actually challenging themselves to lower their screen time. And that's like a group activity that they can like work with each other and challenge each other for that experience of taking control over their behaviors and self-regulating their behaviors. My daughter, she's in 12th grade now, when she was in 10th grade, she had a party in the house, a birthday party for a friend, and like 20 girls came over. They all came and they took their phones and they put them where we put our keys when you come in the house, on the stand over there. And it was amazing because they recognized and they were taught this idea that if they don't have their devices with them, the quality of their experience is going to be so much better. They did take their phones out to take pictures, and then they put them back away again. And it's an amazing thing when you see kids doing this on their own, because they've been educated, because we're shifting the behavior, because it's becoming more thoughtful and deliberative. They're going to be more successful. But you can spend time with your kids. When I was a kid growing up, this is the kind of joystick I used. I had the Atari 2600. Back in the 80s. My son likes to play sports video games, and we play them together very often. He loves it. He beats me because he's used to this type of controller, and I can't even figure out how to use it. So it's really an opportunity, spending time with your kids, using technology as a shared experience as well. It takes it away from being a technology experience to being a human experience with each other, and that's something that is positive. So we know that kids are experiencing FOMO oftentimes when it comes to technology. Does anybody know what BE is? No. It's not Be'ezras Hashem. No. Close. No, actually not even close. No. It's but everyone has. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that parents have, but everyone has. But everyone has the latest iPhone 3000. Everyone has, virtual reality. Everyone has. And that makes it hard for a parent because you want your kids to be in the social in, right? You want them to. And so I actually show this video. It's not just our children, it's monkeys as well. And here we go.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study at the time. Many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs, and with birds, and with chimpanzees. With Sarah Boston started out with capuchin monkeys. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now if you give the bark the grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, there's a far better food. Then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber knows that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece he eats. Then he sees the other one get a great deal of soup. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now and gets again a cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
So that video is so powerful because it really shows us that it's the social norms that influence what our kids want. And so the nice part about a school like this, where there is a concerted effort holistically to influence and impact what kids are engaged in and have a better understanding, is we can actually influence what it is that they want or don't want. So if we can, as a community, set rules, guidelines, expectations of uniformity in certain areas of technology, they're not going to want it. So for example, if no one has Instagram, no one's going to want Instagram. If no one has Snapchat, no one's going to want Snapchat. When kids come and say, but everyone has, it's usually because one or two people have it. But if we can set the standards like apps and social media, or recreational screen time, or ideal shut-off time. So, for example, let's just say that the 9th grade were to agree that 11 p.m. is the shut-off time for technology. Everyone in the 9th grade agreed to it, right? There's very little reason for a 9th grader to be on a device after 11 o'clock. What would happen? No one would want to be on because they wouldn't think that they're missing out on anything. The FOMO was not there. And whether it's 11 or 11:30 or 10 or 10:30, the time almost is irrelevant. It's the idea of removing the FOMO through uniformity, influencing the social norms to address the expectations. When it comes to technology, managing our kids' technology, there's a whole variety of strategies. Familiarize yourself with them. I happen to recommend Apple products, both because I'm a shareholder and because they're the best devices for parents to manage your children's technology, to set limits, to set restrictions. But if it's done as a community and saying, you know, shut off times or apps, etc., then it's going to be more successful. And one of the things that I recommend is also in communicating with your children. I did with my daughter when she got her smartphone. I know most of your kids already have smartphones, but it's something that you can use as a conversation starter anyway, is a contract. My daughter was telling me, oh, everyone has a smartphone, everyone has a smartphone, everyone has a smartphone. And so we created a contract. I made her sit through my, you get the 1 hour version of my lecture. She had to sit through the 4 hour version of my lecture. And we discussed everything, all my concerns, and she had to come up with a contract. So she was part of the process. And she came up with some rules and guidelines. I came up with some rules and guidelines. We went back and forth, and we ended up creating this contract. And there is no doubt in her mind that we set these rules, expectations, and guidelines when it came to technology. And that was very powerful. Disconnect to connect. It's very powerful, as we had said, spending time with your kids without technology serving as a distraction, modeling responsible digital behavior, and most importantly, it's finding balance within your own home as it relates to technology. Finding that balance where we can benefit from what technology has to offer and avoiding the inherent challenges through a thoughtful and deliberative process. I just want to close with a video. I haven't shown this in a while, but this is my daughter. And I asked her, what was it like growing up with more restrictive parents when it came to technology? All right, because we were those parents, yeah. And this was last year in Israel. She sent me this video at like 2 in the morning.
So the annoying thing about having parents who are actually aware of the impact of technology and actually are doing something to having it but not being so dependent on it and being conscious of it all the time definitely helped me in not being addicted to my phone. So having parents that did that, although it was annoying at times and frustrating, it's just another one of those parenting things that is just you have to do, you have to do the right thing, even though it's hard to do.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not sometimes, it's always a struggle. It's always a struggle with our kids. We want them to be happy. We want them to have everything. But setting the limits, setting the guidelines, setting the expectations, although in the short term it's frustrating for them, it's frustrating for you, in the long term it really benefits them and they do much better with it. So thank you so much for having me. I think I have 2 or 3 minutes for questions. So if there's any...
First of all,
Yeah.
there's no question about it that it's a very good introduction that we're going to be doing in school. As I said earlier, they're going to have sessions with a teacher that knows them and knows the values of our community, and taking all of these different things mentioned tonight, not just said like we did it now because due to a lack of time, but each one will become a lesson and a discussion. And once it's discussed and once you really think about it, to be deliberate, how to think about something, how to stop before you act, that's really going to be like embedded in them and have an impact for the rest of their lives, hopefully, not just for duration of being a high school student. And you're going to hear more about it, and we hope to start it after Yontif in different classes. Before we go to the meetings with each grade principal and each grade mechaneches, which will be taking place in about 5 minutes for about 25 minutes. So you hopefully will all be leaving by 10 to 10, because I want you to be home by 10 so you can discuss with your children about how the phones have to be put away at a certain hour. Again, don't do it too quickly. It doesn't have to be done tonight. It has to be done in a very deliberate and very, very, very thoughtful way. I will take 2 or 3 questions if you have any. Go ahead, please. Question.
So the answer is yes. You can get a copy of the contract, but like I said before, right, the rules are secondary to the process. And so just engage in that process. And also I want to jump on what you said. Do not go home tonight and turn your house upside down with new rules, policy. Don't do that. Digest it, process it, think about it, talk to the school, see what they're up to in the curriculum, and start implementing changes slowly to find that balance. But do not go home. Yes.
And I have to tell you, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I use it as a guide, and I must tell you that the students have sent me so at the end of the year when I asked them to reflect, and I've gotten really, really, really very positive feedback. So as a parent of a ninth grader, I'm happy to hear that Bishopka High School is going to be using it in high school. Thank you.
Thank you.
I say this very quickly. We had many discussions with Shabbaton 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. Should we allow phones and not pros and cons, and how they're going to manage, and they'll be so upset, there'll be so much resentment. Guess what happened? Everybody was grateful they didn't have phones. At the end, it was the most fantastic experience. We came back to New York, to Crown Heights, in front of the school, and they got the phones back. It was like such you used the term before, you feel liberated. Time for one more question. Go ahead. You had a question. Go ahead, you had a question.
Please say what happened to the Dodor 2 years after.
I'm sorry?
Please say what happened to your Dodor 2 years after.
2 years after...
After the second experience in Israel.
What?
After your daughter made these comments, this was a year ago or 2 years ago?
This was about a year ago, yeah.
A year ago. Since then, has she been very thoughtful?
No, I'm talking about your second daughter. The second daughter. It's very interesting how...
The one about the birthday parties.
Oh, yes. She was younger when she got the phone. Oh, you want me to explain that? Why? Okay. So as my other daughter said, she was in 10th grade when she got her phone. She was 15. My next daughter got her phone in 9th grade, and she was 14. So you can imagine the indignation that my older daughter had. Oh, I had to wait till I was 15, and my younger sister gets it when she's 14. It's always the older daughter that has the harder things, right? And so the first step with children when they're upset at you is you have to validate their feelings. That's just the first move. So, I see you're really upset, and I understand when you think chronologically why you'd be upset about this scenario. But you have to understand that she got her phone at the exact same time that you did, which is when the social norms demanded it. Right? It was the social norms that defined. We have, as parents, and I should make this point. Tonight I'm not sure which way to go with it, but as parents, we have to understand we are always going to be making choices about the consequences of action versus the consequences of inaction, to do something or to not do something. And so when social issues come up, we need to decide. We were talking about technology tonight, but this really applies to every aspect of parenting, whether it's technology, whether it's going out with friends, whether it's driving, whether it's dating, right? We always have to make decisions about the consequences of action versus inaction. And as parents, these are the choices that we're going to have to make. So everything we talked about tonight with technology really applies to so many other areas of parenting. But once I explained to my daughter that, my older daughter, the one you saw in the video, why her younger sister got a phone chronologically a year earlier, but it was really the same reason, understanding that this was the point where there were social consequences by not having a phone, that's when she got the phone.
Thank you very, very much, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, everything's the way I want it, the way I think it should be. It's a process of conversation, discussion, deliberation, and ultimately, hopefully, a positive resolution. We're going to now, right now.
The parents who are Zooming, you should have gotten a link in your email. So you're all going to have a little walk right now. You're going to walk up. We do this every day, 10 times a day, 2 flights of stairs. On the way, you can take some food. There's a whole table out there for nourishment to use up this energy. So 9th grade parents, you can go up to room 307. That's where the technology is set up. 10th grade parents, room 309. 11th grade parents, 311. And 12th grade parents, 313. We have about a quarter to, I really like to stop. So thank you, Malka, again for setting everything up. And we really appreciate your coming. And as I said, it's an ongoing process.